Welcome back to That Philly Sports Girl. I'm your host, Elise Person, and yesterday, the Philadelphia Eagles 2020 season was ended with a loss to the Washington football team 20-14. The Eagles' loss to Washington sent Washington to the playoffs to face off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next weekend and eliminated the New York Giants from the playoffs. I felt like yesterday the Eagles' loss was a giant representation of the season as a whole. There was controversial coaching calls by Doug Peterson. There was moments of just horrible football in the game. But at the same time, there was also moments of great football from the Philadelphia Eagles in yesterday's loss. So I want to talk about the moments of greatness and great football quickly before we get into looking at the Eagles' season as a whole and even looking into next season. Yesterday, Doug Peterson was actually running the ball, and Boston Scott was able to pick up 65 yards and 15 carries. It was really nice to see Boston Scott in the running game, even though I definitely miss Miles Sanders. But for me, it definitely solidified that I want to see Boston Scott back. I don't know why he wouldn't be, but he's just someone that I think is pretty solid and a great backup for Miles Sanders, who is obviously our number one running back. But it just made me really excited and looking forward to next season with Boston Scott in the running game. I'm also really happy as a whole with Jalen Hurts and the way he finished out the season. I think Hurts brought a great attitude to the game, and when you look at yesterday's game, I felt like we were really playing to win. We could have easily thrown that game away. People might argue that we did at the end with Doug Peterson's quarterback change, but I'll get into that into a little bit. But I just think that Jalen Hurts brought this kind of swagger, if you will, that he wanted to win, and I think everyone else kind of ate off that mentality, and he was able to run with it and really, I felt, really showed his leadership as a young quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday. I know that it's a little still too early to talk about who's going to be under center for the Eagles next year, but I feel pretty good saying that I like Jalen Hurts under center for 2021. I think it's important to note that Jalen Hurts' first NFL career start was a win against the Saints and the number one defense in the league. And I think that he's really showed a lot of promise coming in with a broken offensive line, receivers that are not the most consistent receivers out there, and a head coach that took over play calling when he really should not have whatsoever. So I think all those factors together, let's look at all of his numbers at the end of the season. In the 4 games that he started, Jalen Hurts finished with 1,161 passing yards, 356 running yards, 6 passing touchdowns, and 3 rushing touchdowns. These numbers are not horrible for someone that came in with a lot stacked against him. And I think that if we can get a lot changed next year, when we can come back from offensive injuries on the offensive line, when we can get an offensive coordinator that is going to know how to play, know how to call the plays, and that's his sole job and that's his sole purpose, and just getting some maybe better receivers for our quarterback, who knows what Jalen Hurts could do once we get all these things figured out. So I know I said I wanted to talk about the quarterback controversy yesterday with Doug Peterson's decision to bench Jalen Hurts. It's a decision that I totally understand why it's so controversial, but I somewhat understand it. There's no question at all that the quarterback situation in Philadelphia is shaky and up in the air. But so if let's say Carson Wentz does leave Philadelphia, we will need to figure out a backup quarterback situation. So I saw Nate Sudfeld's fourth quarter play as somewhat as a tryout. Do you want to be our backup quarterback next year? Are you good enough to be our backup quarterback next year? I don't know if I'm looking at it as a tryout. I don't know if his tryout went too well yesterday with the fumbled snap followed by a interception. But as an Eagles fan, I understand that the game didn't really matter at all. And yes, I would have loved to see Jalen Hurts finish it out because I love watching Jalen Hurts play. But at the same time, I think that we do need to figure out as an Eagles team and franchise what our quarterback situation is going to be, and if starting with the backup quarterback by playing Nate Sudfeld in the fourth quarter of a game that didn't really matter is where we begin, I'm not upset with that. The only people that can legitimately be super mad about Nate Sudfeld's fourth quarter appearance is Giants fans. And to be completely honest, I'm sorry that your 6-10 football team isn't going to make the playoffs. That's tragic, Giant fans. I'm so sorry. let's be real. There's no reason that you guys should have been in the playoffs. You started the year off 0-5 and have won one game since then. Have lost 5 games since then. So it's not like you guys really had a great stepping stone anyways. So maybe look towards next season too, Giants. Don't be sad that we are looking at ourselves and your 6-10 football team didn't make it to the playoffs. But now let's look back towards ourselves as the Philadelphia Eagles and look towards next season. There is no doubt that we will be looking at a completely different team. A lot of changes are going to happen. A lot of changes need to happen. And I just think it's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be a lot. I think there's going to be some major changes that happen, even with the coaching staff. We have Jim Schwartz leaving. We're going to need to find a new defensive coordinator. But then even on our offensive end, we obviously have this kind of saga going on with Carson Wentz and even Zach Ertz a little bit. But let's talk about Carson Wentz really briefly. With his, he got benched, and then reports started coming out that his relationship with Doug Peterson is unfixable, that he wants to leave Philadelphia. So right now, he's also still in a contract that who knows if they're going to be able to trade him. So I think there's a lot of questions that are coming now with the Carson Wentz saga. So, Carson Wentz, we really can't tell what's going to happen with him. I mean, like I said, he says the relationship with Doug Peterson is unfixable, but Doug Peterson says that he wants to mend the relationship and continue working with Carson. So I don't really know enough about the situation. I don't think anybody really does to speak on whether Carson Wentz will be back in Philadelphia next year. I think, he clearly wants to go to the Colts. Phillip Rivers is talking about a little bit about retiring. He would love to go play under Frank Reich, I think, the Eagles' former offensive coordinator. But I just think that I don't know if the Philadelphia Eagles are in a position to really give up Carson Wentz yet. So I think there's a lot of unknown factors with that, but definitely going to be some big changes happening with the Eagles man under center next year. So that's going to be something definitely to watch in the offseason. And then we have Zach Ertz. I think that Zach Ertz may have played his last game as a Philadelphia Eagle. He has done so much for the Eagles franchise, and I really do love Zach Ertz. But at the end of the day, this season was just not really the Zach Ertz that I'm used to. I don't want to speak too poorly on him because, like I said, I'm so grateful for everything that he's done. And if I just watched him suit up for the last time as a Philadelphia Eagle, I don't want to focus on the negatives. But at the same time, his effort levels this year they just looked so off. And I'm not sure if there was something else going on behind the scenes that we didn't know about. But he did not look like the Zach Ertz that I know, confident, always giving 100% effort, just getting the job done when the job needs it to be done. I didn't feel like I was getting that from him this year. And that's unfortunate because I love Zach Ertz and I almost wish that he had a better season, but there's nothing we can do. And if we did watch him play his last game as a Philadelphia Eagle, I just want to say thank you so much for everything, Zach Ertz. Last night we saw after the game, Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz, and Jason Kelce on the field over an hour after the game had ended. So the big question was, is that the last time we'll see the three of them together at the Link as Eagles? I don't know. It's kind of going to be something that we have to watch play out. But it is really like the end of an era, And as an Eagles fan, it's hard to give it up. But at the same time, looking for someone that I want the franchise to continue getting better. And it's been unarguable that ever since the quarterback, we have been on a downhill trend. So I think that there is some major shakeups that need to happen within the Eagles, and I'm really looking forward to those shakeups as we head into the offseason. So now shifting gears, talking about the futures of things, the future of That Philly Sports Girl. I will now be doing a bi-weekly podcast starting next Monday covering all things Philly sports. We'll be talking Flyers, Sixers, Phillies, of course, still keeping up with the Philadelphia Eagles and everything that's going to be happening in their offseason. But I just want to say thank you so much to everyone that has followed me throughout this below average Philadelphia Eagles season. Hopefully we get something better next year, but I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has followed me day in and day out and has just given me all the support that I've needed throughout this process of starting a podcast and everything in between. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see you next week as we talk about all things Philly sports. And I'm That Philly Sports Girl, and thank you so much for tuning in.